What's going on, guys? This is Mr. DeLORIan here. Welcome back to a brand new video. Today what I want to do is break down the trailer we got for The Walking Dead Season 10, Episode 18, Find Me.
Let's start with your name.
So in the first shot, we do get Daryl sitting by a lake and everything, what looks to be next to a tiny cabin on the river. And telling by the color grading or kind of color in this shot, I can tell it's a flashback since it looks very kind of yellowish, kind of like how The Walking Dead does every flashback. And since this is a flashback and he's on the river, so I'm assuming that this is going to be where he's kind of looking for Rick still, since obviously Rick blew up the bridge. He's mostly going to be in the river. And I'm assuming this flashback is going to be kind of during Daryl's, I think, 6-year journey of looking for Rick. And obviously he's going to spend lots of time on the river looking for him. And also telling by this shot right here and everything, the back of his jacket, it is obviously his very old jacket without the one that Judith made for him with the kind of blue wing on the back. And what's very interesting about this trailer is that it seems very sad so far and everything, because Daryl's just sitting alone and everything. He's just sitting on the riverside or the lakeside. And he looks like, telling by the music and everything, which I think is very sad. And this is a very good trailer in my opinion. But it seems very hopeless and just very sad. We get a close-up of Daryl, and yet again, something to kind of tell this is a flashback is up besides the color grading his jacket and everything. This is his kind of old haircut and everything, from before the major time jump. And we actually see a fire behind him, and I'm kind of telling by the cabin, the fire. I'm assuming that this is where his main camp is, or maybe where he set up for the day to look for Rick. But he looks very sad, and in my opinion, just very hopeless and just kind of down. Obviously he's alone. He's looking for his best friend that could be dead. Next we go to Carol, and she's in kind of modern day because it it's no longer yellow color grading. It's now modern, just clear colors. But we see Carol pick up this kind of map, what looks to be, and it has kind of a map of the rivers, or what looks to be a map of the streams and the rivers in the local area. So I'm assuming that this is a map that maybe Daryl made a really long time ago of him mapping all the rivers where he's been to and everything while he's looking for Rick. And since she's on her own in this one shot where she one sequence where she's picking up the paper, I'm wondering if this is after she splits paths with Daryl, because in the episode description does say that they are going to split paths when it comes to a fork in the road and go their separate ways until the very end of the episode. But since she is alone, I think she finds us maybe Daryl dropped out of his bag, or maybe she finds his old camp, or maybe her and Daryl go back to his old camp. We also get to see a shot of Carol talking to obviously what I'm assuming is Daryl and everything, and this is probably before they do split up and everything. And she kind of does look the same as she did in that one shot where she did pick up the the map and everything from Daryl. So I do wonder if maybe this is kind of, so I wonder if they're together when that sequence happens, when she picks up the map. I don't know, but she pretty much says I feel nothing, do you feel nothing's on her side anymore? So maybe in this episode, maybe they're having some bad luck maybe and everything, or maybe just just something just went wrong and then she just said that. But this is clearly before they split up, or maybe this is after they reunite at the end of this episode or anything, but I'm more so assuming that this is before they do split up and reach the fork in the road. Next we do see Daryl pretty much loading up a bunch of things onto his motorcycle and everything yet again in modern day. He loads up his crossbow, his knives and everything onto him, and he gets on. He also, what's very weird about this is what I noticed, and he does put in a stick kind of inside of his in the his holster of his motorcycle. And what's very weird is how the stick looks very much like Morgan's stick, the one that he uses, which I doubt it is, since obviously Morgan is far gone at this point in Virginia, I think, or wherever he is. I think Texas, I can't fucking remember. But it did look kind of like Morgan's stick. Maybe it's a stick for dog and everything, maybe he plays catch with dog, I have no clue. But I just thought it was very weird how the stick looks a lot like one that Morgan has. But we do get a shot of Daryl riding solo on this kind of path, which like I said in other breakdowns does look like the path that maybe towards Hilltop. But I'm just not sure if it is anymore, considering that Daryl and Carol and Maggie and all of them went to Hilltop already in episode 17. So I'm assuming that this is just on another path to somewhere. Or because in this shot Daryl's alone, in previous trails we did see Carol and Daryl on the back of a motorcycle and everything riding together on what looks to be the exact same path. So maybe they were on this path and everything, reached a fork in the road, and that's when they split apart and everything, and then Daryl took dog and everything, and they kind of just went their separate ways. And now he's on his motorcycle riding while Carol is walking. So I do feel that this is after they do split paths and everything, and they're on the same trail, or they're on different paths, or different pathways on the trail and everything, and Daryl goes his separate way on his motorcycle with dog, and Carol goes her separate away. In our next shots and everything, or in the next sequence, we get to see Daryl standing out in front of this house and everything, and he looks like he's like standing in front of also some spikes that are maybe in front of the house. I'm not sure if those are spikes, but he's standing outside this house and everything. And in other trailers, we did get to see Daryl walking towards like a cabin, but those were in like kind of flashback yellow color grading type shots and everything. So I do wonder if maybe he's going back to this cabin, because we do know and everything, it's pretty much common knowledge at this point if you've seen like a lot of the trailers for season 10, like, you know, see that Daryl will end up meeting like, you know, a straggler, just like a random person inside a cabin. So maybe because we don't get to see her in like, you know, modern day, like the person he's gonna meet. I think her name's Leia or Leia. I have no clue. This is not Star Wars, but I can never pronounce her name right. But we know that Daryl is gonna meet like, you know, this girl in like a cabin. I think she's gonna point a gun at him, but we don't get to see her in modern day or anything. So I do wonder if Daryl's gonna go back to this like, you know, cabin that they like, you know, once shared or were once in together and everything, to kind of like, I don't know, reminisce or whatever. But we do see him standing in front of this cabin, and I do wonder if it's the exact same cabin that they like, you know, were in together. We next get to see Daryl chasing dog and everything throughout the woods, and yet again flashback, I think yellow color grading. But what's weird is Daryl looks like he's wearing kind of the poncho that he did, and I think the beginning of season 10, I think, or it might have been season 9, when Daryl was like, you know, in the water trying to get fish. I think it's episode 6 of season 9, which is while he's still looking for Rick and everything. He's living on the water still, and that's also when Carol and Henry come to like, you know, get him from like, you know, the water and everything from his boat while he's looking for Rick still. So I do wonder if this is around the same time of like, you know, after episode 6, or around episode 6 of season 9, I think, when Daryl is on a pond show and everything, and he's like, you know, trying to hunt fish in the water. But it does look like he's chasing dog in this shot and everything. What's very weird is it doesn't look like he's following him. It looks like he's chasing him, like, you know, and that's very weird and everything. So I'm not sure why dog would go away from him, unless this is when we're gonna like, you know, figure out that this is how Daryl met dog, which makes like, you know, more sense. Yet again, a shot we've seen before and everything, but this is Daryl on the lakeside and everything, on like, you know, the riverside, looking for obviously Rick and everything, his body on like, you know, the side of the river. And this river looks really long. He's walking towards like, you know, the camera, I think, and if you look back, it looks like he's been walking for like miles on end to like, you know, find Rick. And obviously, like, you know, the map that Carol picked up is obviously gonna have like, you know, all of this like, you know, all marked out. Next we see Carol and dog and everything, and Carol's lifting up this like floorboard inside his place while dog's trying to sniff around and everything, and she reaches down into the floorboard or under the floorboards to like, you know, find something, which I'm not sure, you know, exactly what she's looking for yet. But this also looks like it's inside a cabin, which it might be the same cabin that Daryl and Lay, like, or, you know, Lay's sharing. I'm just gonna call her Lay, or Lee, you know, fuck it. But this might be the same cabin, it might not be, and maybe Carol knows about this cabin or anything that they, like, you know, were in, like, you know, Lay and Daryl, because she does mention other trailers that, like, you know, I don't want to lose you out here, so maybe she does know about them and everything, and she's like, I don't want to lose you out here to her, which sounds like jealousy in my opinion, but, you know, don't come after me, Carol fans. But I do wonder what she's searching for in these floorboards, and it looks like dog sniffing around, so I do wonder what she's specifically looking for. A shot we've already seen before, and then we do get to see Daryl, like, you know, kind of rushing at, like, you know, a cabin just in the woods, and this is clearly the cabin that you will find, like, Lay in. In the next sequence, we pretty much get to see Daryl, like, you know, burst and enter through the house and everything, and he, like, you know, shoots a walker, but then Lay comes out and throws shit at him, and she points a shotgun at him, which yet again gives me season, I think, 3 vibes of, like, you know, when Rick and, like, Daryl and all them were going to those houses, I think, when the dead come knocking in that episode. I love that episode in that sequence. But we see him, like, you know, enter the house and everything. Lay points a shotgun at him saying, who the hell are you? And what's very weird about this is that Daryl doesn't look angry. He doesn't look scared. He looks like, you know, calm. Like, he actually looks like he wants to comply and everything. He looks very just, like, you know, vulnerable in my opinion. I don't know, maybe it's love at first sight when he sees her. I don't know. Yet again, don't come after me, Carol fans. We next get to see Daryl and everything stab a walker just, like, you know, out in the woods and everything. And yet again, this looks like color grading and everything, the yellow color grading. So this will clearly be a flashback. Not much to really break down these two shots. We next see also Daryl kind of, like, you know, look at this walker that's on, like, you know, I'm assuming, like, you know, the dirt and everything out in the woods, and he, like, you know, sees it, like, you know, lying there, so he, like, stomps viciously on it and everything. It kind of does look a bit, like, you know, angry in this shot, or a bit just, like, you know, in distress, because obviously, like, you know, he smashes his foot down on it. And then in the last few shots is probably the craziest shit I've ever seen involving Daryl in my entire goddamn life. We pretty much see Daryl, like, you know, just sit, like, you know, staring up and, like, screaming his head off and everything inside this, like, you know, what looks to be burnt down cabin with what looks to be, like, you know, Ash kind of like, flying around. And this does look to be modern day with another, like, the yellow color grading and everything. So I do wonder, like, maybe he's having flashbacks of looking for, like, Rick, Connie, or Lei and everything. Because yet again, we don't see Lei in like, present day and anything, which she could still be alive. We, like, don't get any confirmation that she has died at all since, like, the episode comes out next week. But Daryl's, like, screaming and everything here. And, like I said, this is probably the, like, most, like, I've ever seen Daryl ever scream or in distress, like, ever. Which is just, like, it blew my mind. When, like, I first saw this trailer when episode 17 ended, I was like, oh my god, that, like, I need to rewatch that. But yeah, like I said, it's probably him having, like, flashbacks of losing people and everything and just all that stuff. And, like, him trying to look for Rick, possibly Lei, or, like, Connie. But he's obviously in extreme distress and everything. The cabin's burned down. Maybe it's the same cabin that him and Lei were in and everything. Maybe they do get together. I don't know. And also the episode name is, like, titled, like, Find Me. So maybe, like, Lei leaves him and she's like, find me when, like, you're, ready to spend, like, time with me. Because obviously, like, in the past and everything, Dale's obviously gonna be looking for Rick a lot. So maybe she's gonna be like, like, it's either me or him and everything. One of those, like, situations, or one of those girls. So maybe, like, she leaves him and everything, and that sends him into, like, a spiral where he's like, I keep losing people and everything, and just all of that. And maybe she says, like, find me when, like, you're ready. I still have a complete crazy theory that I do want to share in a video, like, later on or anything, but it's very crazy, so I won't share it now, like, just right on the spot right now. But this was, like, an insanely crazy trailer in my opinion, and that was pretty much the end of the trailer. Like, we have, like, Daryl, like, past Daryl, I think, in flashbacks, from what I'm assuming is, like, season 9, season 10-ish time, more likely season 9-ish time, because of his, like, jacket and everything, how it's, like, the old jacket, and him just searching on the river for, like, Rick, and how him and Carol are gonna pretty much split paths and everything for at least, like, a decent amount of the episode and everything, to, like, just go the separate ways and possibly find supplies or do just something else. And Daryl looking on the riverside for, like, possibly Rick and everything, or more so definitely Rick and everything, and then him meeting the character Lei. And also that map, I don't know why that, like, made me feel very interesting, that map that Carol pulled up or anything. Maybe we'll get to see, like, like a teaser to maybe, like, how long Daryl's been looking for Rick. Like, maybe, like, have a mark on there, like, 6 days or 6 months since, like, Rick or whatever. I don't know, that sounds weird now that I mention it out loud. But maybe we'll get to see some, like, cool things maybe on that map that he's written down. I'm not sure. Maybe it's like a, love note to Lei or whatever. I have no clue. And just him screaming at the top of his lungs was, like, it really got me. I was like, holy shit, that's, like, the loudest and most distressed, like, Daryl has ever looked. I mean, he's looked, like, sad and, like, scared and, like, angry before and everything, but seeing him kind of just screaming in absolute pain and everything and just, like, sadness is just definitely very, like, it's just like when you first see something that you've never seen a character do ever, it just catches you by, like, surprise and makes you hooked it, like, towards it, like, immediately. But yeah, that was the trailer and everything for season 10 episode 18 episode, like, 18 and everything, Find Me. If there's anything that I did miss in this trailer and everything, like, something that I didn't see and something that you did see and everything, make sure to comment it down below. And also make sure to comment down below so we can all have a discussion. I think, what was your favorite part of this trailer? And I think what, like, caught your eye? What are you most excited for in episode 18? Because, like, I'm very excited for this episode and everything. A lot of people said that this in, like, early reviews that this episode drags a lot and everything, but I'm like already finding myself very hyped about it and everything, just with, like, Dale screaming, him looking for Rick, and just, like, what's gonna go on between Carol and Daryl in this episode, I think, because they still have a relationship to kind of rebuild. But yeah, that was my breakdown for the trailer for episode 18 of season 10 and Find Me. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more of the latest in the Walking Dead universe and more breakdowns like this and everything. And yep, I see you guys all later, my amigos, and peace out.